Okay.
I want to, oh, great. I want to start out with a welcome and a thank you. A thank you. So, because I know that your schedules are so hectic and everything is just moving so quickly. I can't believe that it's September the 30th and the things that we've experienced thus far this year. But with that in mind, I do believe the training, sincerely, what you're getting ready to partake in, is one of the most valuable trainings as it relates to engaging our families. And I was a principal, and I always felt that was crucial, particularly in moving those struggling students. So I know that some of you who are new to the entire district, new to this work, you're probably wondering about the Family Engagement Action Team. This is nothing new. We started this back in the year 13-14. But as you know, as principals retired, new leaders rose to the occasion, staff rotated out, transferred. Family engagement and all of these concepts, it's just an ever training opportunity. So in this training, you'll know about what is your key role as the contact person. So that's going to be very important as we go through the slides and explain how this works and how valuable we think if you really implement these components that we're going to talk about, you'll see a huge difference in your student performance and your family engagement.
Thank you, Dr. Brim. We wanted to share with you our family engagement vision. The Office of Strategic Partnerships has been working for about a year now with a interdepartmental group, leaders across departments, and some of their designees have continued, and we've met monthly. It's a district family engagement team. And we started with developing a vision. We've got several things that we'd like to accomplish. We started in last year on working on revising the family engagement policy. We're trying to make things easier, make things more collaborative. Not so much dealing in different departments, doing the same work and not collaborating, but operating in silos. We want to be able to look and present a united view to our families and take advantage of the knowledge that is deep and rich in all the organizations or all the departments in Pinellas County Schools. So we meet monthly and we're moving along. We have taken on a special kind of a sample project with the Reading Recovery Program. And so there's some Reading Recovery teachers here tonight, and some of the Reading Recovery schools will get some little extra attention with family engagement this year. But all of you have had your principal fill out the Family Engagement Action Team form and appoint you as the point of contact. So we're happy to share our vision with you. Pinellas County Schools is a place where rich partnerships among educators, families, and community members promote 100% student success. And you can see that we tried to tie that into the district vision.
In that, we always seem to create projects, initiatives, and we drive them down to our school-based leaderships without a lot of input from our top leadership. Well, this was different because we included our top leadership. And because we really strongly believe, and according to the research, that family engagement is an instructional strategy, you're getting ready to hear a clip from our Associate Superintendent of Teaching and Learning. And he really has been involved in this work and paramount to really developing the processes and the procedures to make sure families are included.
I'm Kevin Hendrick, Associate Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, and I'm excited to be here to welcome you to the Family Engagement Action Team training. I want to take a few moments to express the importance of families being engaged. We've all seen where engaged families can lead to higher student achievement And certainly any type of engagement from families helps to connect students, school, home, communities, and lead us all to better outcomes, not only for students, but for the school community as the entirety. Family engagement is one of the key instructional strategies that supports academic achievement, but sometimes is an often underutilized strategy. Think of how many times teachers have worked so hard to connect students to lessons and just need them to do that little bit more at home or to review those notes one more time. If families knew about those things that were important, generally families will step up and have their children act in accordance with the school's wishes. And so we hope that through the next couple of days and weeks and months, and as the school year goes on, you're able to learn some of these strategies and put them to use in your schools. Your participation is a step in the right direction. Becoming part of FEAT, or the Family Engagement Action Team, will help all at your school continue to connect families with teachers, with the actions that you need in a positive way. You're going to learn how to develop engagement activities based on school data, create opportunities to build relationships, work with diverse families, and build partnerships and capacity to support students at home. Over the course of the last several years, we've learned that family engagement can take many different looks. The use of Zoom and Teams and other ways to connect with families at home have really opened up the lines of communication. We hope that you're able to capitalize on those, think of new ways to engage families, that it doesn't always just have to be that in-person meeting or that PTA or everybody come to the cafeteria auditorium in order to hear what the school has to say. There's so many other ways and unique ways to engage families, to raise student achievement, and we hope that you do so. Think about making connections to other district initiatives like PCS Connects and Level Up, and the use of devices in the classroom and at home as a means to continue to use instructional strategies to improve student achievement. We want our schools to be a place where rich partnerships engage families, educators, community members, and promote 100% student success. So good luck during the training. We know that you do a great job, and we know that you'll continue to connect families to 100% student success.
I hope that set the stage. We were so happy that Mr. Hendrick agreed to open up the training for us. And now we're going to do a little activity, a little interactive activity. I want to say something before we do it. Some of the things we are doing tonight in our training are modeling what we're talking about. So as we move through the training, you might think, oh, you know, what she's talking about, that's why we did that. Oh, that's why we did that. So this is an opportunity for you to not just have to sit there, but to be able to interact with us, especially in this Zoom world. We need to think of different ways to make that happen. So here we are. We'd like you to take another device, a phone or a tablet, and open your camera app, hover over the QR code, or go to www.menti, just menti.com, and you'll enter those 8 characters or 8 numbers. And what we want you to do then is answer the question, what awesome outcomes have you seen as a result of family engagement at your school? We're going to build a word cloud. I'm going to go off and find that, and Dr. Brim is going to talk a little bit more.
Okay, I just want to give an example of an awesome outcome as we work through the mentor meeting, the activity. I was just thinking about as a outcome of engagement, my best picture was when I worked with Fairmont Park and developed the Family Engagement Children Initiative Zone. And that was a program that required any students to participate. That required them that their parents were required also to participate. We had about 133 students. We had monthly meetings. And when I tell you those parents, 86% of those parents attended monthly. And some of the key outcomes were their knowledge of navigating the system, questioning our families, and all of those components of what it would really take. It really showed up in their academic performance. Right now, several of those students that were in that program graduated and has gone to college. So I know that those families, I see those families right now today, and they say, I remember you. And they would talk to me just as freely. But when you look at some of these results, that's exactly what we were able to see in that Fairmont Park Children Initiative. Ms. Kane, you want to highlight some of the pieces?
Yeah, so many of them seem to be about connecting and community and relationships. Of course, student achievement is mentioned. Some of the ones that are the words that are a little bit bigger than others, that means they've actually been answered more than once. So the words will grow, as the same word is continued to be entered. But really, happiness, students, student achievement, community, understanding, higher grades, you know what it's all about, and it's happening. We certainly know that family engagement is happening in all of our schools. We're here to help you enhance that, supplement that, learn some new strategies, keep up with the new research, and be able to continue to keep your families engaged and active. So fun little activity. And we'll be, when we follow up with the recording, which we will tomorrow in an email to all of you, and any of the handouts again, and I'll include the word cloud because I think it's kind of a fun thing to share. So now we'll go back to
So as we transition back into this next slide, I really want you to think about some of those key words: connection, community, and achievement. So in our next slide, okay, I really want to take a couple of minutes to talk about the economics of what we're dealing with right now. And if you have a pen or pencil, you can highlight some of these components. When we talk about public education is in crisis, and when we talk about in crisis, it is always related to funding. If you do not know, funding is directly related to students who are in the seats during our FTE count. Students are directly related to families. When you think about students are directly related to families, you must also think about families who are directly related to FTE dollars. Can you go to the next slide, Ms. Kane? I want you to take a look at this financial responsibility deep practice. Prior to COVID, 2018-19, if somebody can unmute and tell me what is it that you see about 2017-18, 2018-19, what is it that you see about this graph? Anyone want to unmute and just make a comment? No one?
Well, I'll comment because I put this slide in, but I didn't get any background on it. So I see that.
I was going to answer.
Oh, good.
Oh,
okay.
Oh, great.
Hi, Ashley. Yes, please do.
Hi, how are
Sorry.
you? Yeah. So you're talking specifically about 2018-19. It looks like the revenue and expenditures were fairly equal.
Fairly equal. If you can think about, and that's exactly true, the money that was coming in was equal to the money that we were spending. Now, I want you to fast forward that same concept and think about now COVID. In our initial year of March of 2020, and this is going to be huge, even for our principals that are on and for our reading recovery teachers, all of our educators, our community liaisons, because it's going to be very important. In our initial year of March 20, returning from March 20, we literally was missing 6,000 students in our district. If we had 102,000 students and was missing 6,000, sometimes you don't equate 6,000 students, oh well. But when you multiply 6,000 students by their FTE count, which is around 7,800, or it might be a little higher, millions and millions of dollars. Keeping in mind that our district was kind enough that although our student population decreased, they maintained a lot of our positions in the district. So at the end of that year, we were able to recover the majority of those 6,000 students. But do you know how long it took us to do that? Why am I mentioning that? Is because when you talk about family engagement, when you talk about building relationships, students that are missing can easily with a conversation as to why. The other point that is financially important, and the reason I wanted to point this out is because sometimes we don't get it until it impacts our or what we call our finance. If you think about that, there's a possibility, and I still am waiting on the final count, that between 1819 until this present time, we could have very well have lost about 15,000 students. Just say that's fictitious if that's the case. Because I early this year, I did run some numbers about 83,000. And I was looking at who was actually leaving our district. And you would be surprised of the families that were leaving because they are now developing their own way of educating their children. And so why do we have to think different? Why is it going to be so important? Because if we're going to continue to lose families, we're going to have to look at why. Are we being very welcoming in our schools? Are we being accommodating for the different diverse families that we're serving? Are we considering additional educational modes to teach our students? Are we considering and operating in different ways to connect, remember that connect, to our communities and to our families? So when we began to think about the financial responsibility and the financial concerns, it is heavily weighted on student FTE and whether or not our students are returning. My last comment, we did a survey and the data deplete. Parents who actually visit our schools and wanted to determine if they wanted to see if they wanted to actually enroll their students. They evaluated whether or not it was a welcoming environment, if it was academically focused, if students had an opportunity to really excel, and more so, how are they embracing and engaging the family and the learning environment? And so those are some key points that I wanted to point out regarding the economics of why this is so important and why we're getting at it. And we're relentless about making sure that our schools understand. And my last point is that in the next couple of months, we could very well in our district experience families who are evicted for whatever reason. Previously in June of this year, there were about 21,000 evictions waiting for the judge to give the okay. They held that off through September the 30th, and I don't know how long it will continue. But could you imagine doing this roller coaster with families if we don't know them, if we don't know where our kids are, that we can lose easily 21,000 without a conversation. So we want to consider all those pieces. So thank you for that, listening with that. So our next slide.
Thanks, Dr. Brehm. It gives a good perspective on, it being such a much bigger piece of the pie than just, it's a good thing to welcome families, right? It makes a big deal. All right, so we're going to move into a core value activity. And I think that Dr. Brim laid the foundation for this. How do we think about our families? How do we think about our core beliefs? We have to work kind of leading from our core beliefs, right? We have to think about what they are, examine them, and let our core beliefs really steer us as we go to, do the work of engaging families. Sometimes we think about, families, we have to fix families. We have to, view families as the problem and we have to fix them. But, we'd like to think that you can view families as part of the solution if you can open up and really think about some of your core values. So we're going to go through a poll, 4 polls, Zoom polls. They're anonymous, they're absolutely anonymous, and we will do a little reflection and debrief after each of them. But we'd like you to please answer. I won't show the results until all the answers are in, and please answer honestly. All right, Dr. Brim.
So the first core value, all families have dreams for their children and want the best for them. Please go ahead and submit your response.
Okay. Thank you guys for responding quickly. I'm going to end the poll and share the results.
Okay, so we have 23% of us said strongly agree, 54% is agree, and 23% disagree. So in our conversation, we want your input because we don't know who disagreed. But let's just take a moment and have that conversation as to why would someone do not believe or believe that all families have dreams for their children and want the best. Any comments?
I'm willing to share. I think that there are cases of families who have themselves lost hope and have not had hope for generations or years. And so they don't have dreams for their kids. And they live that out with their decision making, their decisions to become addicted to drugs and or other things. And they live with a sense of hopelessness. And because they don't have hope for their kids. And certainly they would say, oh, I have a dream for my child. I don't want this for my kid. I want better for my kid, but I don't believe that, because if you wanted different, you would live different. And so I know that's like a hard thing to say, because it's very hard for our families who are in generational poverty, who have these really, really, really tough situations that they're going through. But I do think there's families who have lost hope for their kids. I have conversations with parents who say, about 10-year-olds, I don't know what to do about them. I've given up. So in that kind of situation where they're saying that about their 10-year-old already, that says to me, they don't have dreams for their kids. Or maybe they've thrown them to the trash and they've said, not their child, but the dream. And they've said, it's not gonna, it's not something that I can wrap my head around. For me, it's a conversation about hopelessness. If families don't have hope for their kids, then they don't expect their children to do different and follow through different. And so that's why I disagree.
Okay. Ms. Kane, do you want to elaborate or you?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Lisa. I think that you're absolutely true. I mean, there are times when for whatever reason, parents are struggling, they have stressful things going on in their lives, sometimes, very awful things, the things that you've mentioned. And so, yes, they may let that get in the way, but I believe that their innermost feelings, are still that they want, the best for their children. Truly, maybe today, tomorrow, next week, they aren't acting that way because of what else is going on in their lives. And they certainly say and do things that make us wonder, if they respect the importance of education. And, yet they do send their children to school. And I think, deep down, they do want what's best for them. I think my hope, well, what I hang on to is that, and that's my hope, that they do have that innermost dream, even though we don't see, the actions and behaviors that sometimes would support
I
that.
would certainly hope that you're right, but unfortunately today, there's just so many examples of not that it's just really sad. And, like I would hope, just like you, that every parent would want the best for their children.
Right.
But
Right.
I don't see that in today's culture.
Okay, so
Sorry.
I would like to can I say a couple of pieces on that? So when you think about, this is a core value. This is a belief of a core value. So what we see without all the details of what we see, then what we have to do is guard how it's shaping us to believe and respond. So yes, this is tough work. Yes, This is disappointing work. You see so many different things, but I think what we talk about is our core value. Is it going to alter how we believe?
Well, and that's,
so-
I think that's the thing that you're drilling into is like, what's your level of professionalism or how are you gonna, and my personal thing is like, that thing of like, come as you are, but don't leave as you came. So come however you are and we'll love you forward. So obviously I'm not going to approach the situation unprofessionally and say, I welcome and y'all suck. So
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, and I certainly would never act that way, nor do I think that way. But you said, how do we feel deep down inside?
Yeah, that's what
Deep down inside, how I feel is no, every parent doesn't care. But am I going to act that way? Am I going to approach situations that way? Absolutely not. It's not professional. So, if we want to talk about what's best practice, that's one thing. But deep values, that's entirely different. Because
and so it wasn't
I've been hired to do a job, and I'm going to do it. You know what I mean?
Yes. So that's what I think in this whole core value. Do we have inside, deep inside us, do we believe parents have some dreams for their kids? I believe every parent has some level of dreams. Do they have the capacity to help support their kids to carry the dream out? Or do they hope, nobody wakes up and have a baby and say, you know what, this baby is just worthless. They do have dreams, but in our hearts, we have to be able to say, I see this, but I also am going to respond to what I believe, because sometimes in the journey, it really breaks us to alter our actions based on what we see every day. And it's not getting better, but I know. But okay, all right. So number 2, all parents have the capacity to support their children's learning. All families have the capacity to support their children's learning. I think this is yours, Ms. Kane. This one.
Okay. Yep. Everybody's done now. So this one always catches people, especially after the lively discussion on core value number 1, which is always the case, really. And I think what we struggle with is, what do we mean by capacity? What's the definition of capacity? So we definitely have a larger majority percentage here, 70% who are on the disagreeing end, and 31% that do agree. I think, again, here you need to think about, regardless of how little, maybe formal education families may have or what language they speak, that in some way, all parents can contribute to their child's learning. So we didn't say they have the capacity to be their child's teacher, right? But they do have the capacity to support their child's learning. So whatever that means, right? If it's their knowledge, their talents, their experiences in life, there's all kinds of ways that they can provide their children with support in their learning or their learning life. Assisting with school skills, school staff need to help parents understand and use their capacity. And that's really what we're about tonight. We're about having important conversations, planning, building relationships, planning events where we're connecting parents to resources and strategies different, from parent to parent. Just like we differentiate instruction, we differentiate, or we suggest that you differentiate your family engagement, because all parents, don't have the same capacity, the same time, the same energy, but they do have capacity to support their child's learning. They have some, fund of knowledge that we can tap into. And we say, of course, in many ways, parents are their child's first teachers. And it's said almost in a cliche way, but I believe that we have to believe in some way they have, a capability, a capacity to support their child's learning. Again, it's one of those core values. You have to come from a hopes and dreams kind of a vantage point. I don't know, Dr. Brim, do you have anything to add?
I wanted to use this analogy of if you drive and if you have a car, every single car comes with a gas tank. So if you think about that's the parent capacity, they're coming to the table with a gas tank, but some will fill their gas tank up the beginning of the beginning of the week. Some is going to put $7 in there. Some will put $20 in there. It just all depends on what, just say you're funding to what you're going to bring and put it in the car. But everyone did come with a gas tank. But the capacity piece is just what they have to offer, which is what they're putting, the amount of the gas they're putting in the tank. So in a core value, you're looking at and you're spending that time because you want to really be able to say, okay, what are our parents bringing to the table? What can they really offer us to support? Because they're coming to the table with the gas tank. Something got to be in there if their kid is showing up every day. And so that's how we always kind of, phrase that capacity piece. Okay, the next core value. Parents and school staff should be equal partners. Families and school staff should be equal partners. Okay, so we have strongly agree, 46%, 38% agree, 15% disagree. So can we ask someone to share out your thoughts on parents or families becoming equal partners? If anyone want to share out their thoughts. Any thoughts on what we mean by equal partners?
I'll go again. So I took it as equal partners. So we should be working collaboratively. We should be working together. We should be supporting one another constantly. So through communication, outreach, building that investment between families and students within the school. So while, the children are in our care for 7 or 8 hours a day, they're home with their parents for the remainder of the day. We see them probably more than their parents actually see them. You know what I mean? So we have to take that responsibility, that ownership, in working with the parents to be these equal partners.
Okay, so I do think that's true. Go ahead, Ms. King.
I was going to say that's spot on to, what we would have, said in a reflection, just exactly that everyone, interested in supporting the child's development, the child's education, should have equal value, equal responsibility. And of course, it starts, back to the first two core values with the premise that everybody has something to offer, and really no one should be, expected to do something well if they haven't been properly prepared, which is again, where we're going with all this, building parent capacity. And if students haven't been taught effectively, or parents shown how to support learning at home, then they can't be considered failures. It's, accountability kind of thing, and increasing their capacity will strengthen, the partnership on both sides. I liked what you said, Ashley, about communication too. That's a big part, and you'll see that's something that we're going to dig into too.
And I want to say, as an equal partner, I didn't believe this at first. I really didn't. As a principal, I felt that I had the knowledge that is needed to run a school, in addition to the knowledge that to support teachers to educate our children, and that families, okay, if you come, all right, okay, if you don't, it's okay, because we're going to get at it anyway. Well, I soon found out that wasn't going to work. I needed those parents as a principal. So I started going to the homes. I started, going to community meetings where they were. And once they bought into me really wanting them to be on board, it changed my school, it changed my attitude. So, I understand this equal partnership piece. And then really true, authentic engagement, we want them to be engaged so far, but not really equal partners. And so that's where we're going to have to really work and change those pieces. Okay, Ms. Kane.
On to number 4.
The responsibility for building and sustaining partnerships between school, home, and community rests primarily with school staff, especially school leaders. Okay, agree, disagree, strongly disagree. The responsibility primarily rests with school staff, especially school leaders. Ms. Kane, you want to elaborate on this one?
Sure. So I think this is a strange one too, following number 3, where we've said, they should be equal partners. And now we're saying, but the responsibility for building the partnership rests with the school and primarily school leaders. And I think at this point, we're suggesting that the principal, plays a key role. Teachers and school staff have to step up as advocates, for family involvement. Leadership from all sets the tone. Many families see, schools as powerful and kind of forbidding. Maybe they've had some kind of negative, experience and just are afraid, really intimidated. So I think what we're trying to get at here is that the responsibility for reaching out, right? Reaching out to parents, for educators, is easier than parents reaching in to teachers and school staff. So this gets back to the welcoming environment. It's the open door policy to make it easy for parents to engage, for families to feel welcome, and then to step up to that equal partnership. But the bit that starts it, or the thing that opens the door really comes from the school and the school leaders. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about that, or Dr. Brim, you want to wrap that up?
Yes, I do think the leadership, the school leadership, because I always believe the kingdom is a reflection of the king. And so if you really have the leadership of your school really believing that it is important to build relationships and partnerships with our families and our community, that's going to permeate throughout your school. And so it is going to kind of rest heavily on that leadership of the school. And the leadership could be a team group, like your engagement team, or the leadership can be truly your principal and the administrative team. But I think there needs to be, it's no different than what we thought, okay, we can be out here really hustling, trying to get our families engaged. And then we look at our top leadership and they don't care. So it's like, no, our top leadership has to also feel that that is a most important, that is a very important aspect of our entire education journey, for that to trickle, like journey down through our schools and our site-based leadership.
We had 50% disagree with this statement though. So I'm interested if anybody wants to share, and we don't need to spend a lot of time if nobody feels like, sharing, but I am interested to see what about this statement caused you to say disagree, or maybe if you even agreed, what about the statement do you think might cause somebody else to disagree with how it reads?
I would say that, teachers take a very important role with relationships with parents, especially like at an elementary level, but even middle school. A lot of times when we need to work with families, the teachers may spend more time with the kids than the parents do. And, sometimes as a leader, yes, we can act as, a support for them, absolutely. But sometimes I think teachers have a much greater role in that than, let's say, an assistant principal or a principal, depending upon what the situation may be.
That's
I
really
agree. Yeah.
that's an interesting take on why someone might have disagreed with this, that it still rests with, the school, but you would say primarily with the classroom teacher versus the school leaders. And we wouldn't disagree with you with that. We do feel like the relationship between the classroom teacher and the student's family is what builds the foundation for family engagement.
And so I see it twofold. In a survey that we did collect, the response from our families, they indicated the number one person they want to be able to connect with are their teachers, are their children's teachers. And so that kind of speaks to what you said. But if the expectation doesn't come from the leaders for teachers to want to connect or make sure they are communicating with their families or engaging their families and their students' data, then it still goes back to what are the expectations from that leader. But truly, parents want to hear from the teachers. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I agree as well. I think that I've seen a lot of different sides to that. I've seen some that kind of care, some that don't, and then I've seen some that do, being at the school that I'm at now. And when your administrator really pushes for family engagement and really goes above and beyond to try to get families involved, it makes the teachers want to do that more.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That is so true.
Thank you both for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going to move on.
Okay, so we always base our work on what we call research, best practices, what's out there. So we have always consulted with Dr. Karen Mapp, if you've ever heard of her name. She's a Harvard professor, and she worked closely with the state of Florida to build what we call the dual capacity framework for family and community partnerships. And in the framework, I want to discuss some of the highlighted pieces. So in your packet, you or in your handouts that we sent to you via email, you received a copy of we call the dual capacity building framework. Why did they call it dual capacity? So it goes back to the whole theme of partnerships and families and schools connected. It's a dual role. We have in our education system have always said the parents need to do this, the parents need to do that. But this whole process is that no, it's a dual role. Educators have a role as well as parents. But some of the key pieces that we're going to be discussing from this partnership, if you can see it on the slide, is called process conditions. Process conditions are those conditions that's going to drive family engagement, relationship built on trust, linked to learning. And so one of the things that, and I know Mrs. Kane is going to take over these 5, I'm just going to highlight them, and then we're going to kind of talk about them in depth. Relationships. For the last 5 years, we have been talking about building relationship with all of our families. What we have not been doing in a very effective manner is linking engagement events to learning. In the past, if we put on an event, it was always event-oriented, not result-oriented. We might have 300 parents show up, but nothing, they leave with no resources to support their kid at home. Access-based, culturally responsive, interactive, and collaborative. These are all the process conditions. When you go back, could you please go back to the framework, Ms. Kane, for one more second. If you see the organizational leadership piece down at the bottom, that is what we're working with as it relates to our district family engagement team, making engagement systemic. You'll be surprised how episodic it is, how people are doing different things all over the district. Integrative, embedded strategies. How are we embedding family engagement, building partnerships in our professional development? New teachers coming on. In an education university, there's no courses for family engagement. But as you approach and you're hired in a district, how are we training you to embrace families, even diverse families? And of course, sustaining the resources and infrastructure. You'll be surprised of the lack of knowledge of resources that are available from our community, free of charge to our families. And so all of those pieces are important, Ms. King. So we're going to move forward and talk about the process conditions.
So process conditions are basically, we think it's the key to designing effective initiatives for building the capacity of school families and school staff to partner in ways that support student achievement. These 6 conditions we would suggest are so important for adult learning efforts. Really, every time you plan an initiative or an interaction or an event, you should think about, what process conditions am I touching? And could you touch all 6 of them? That would be the optimal. We're going to buzz through each of them just so you have a bit of an idea. Relational. These would be intentional activities that help build positive relationships between school staff and families. It's really the foundation of shared learning and responsibility. No meaningful family engagement can be established until relationships of trust and respect are established between home and school. So think about, you plan an event, you get all excited, you put your flyers out, you get your snacks, or maybe you're able to get a donated, bit of food for dinner. You've got some activities for families, and got your sign-in sheets and everything ready to go, and you have very few families show up. And it's disappointing. And you think, why didn't they show up? What's the matter with them? Well, we would suggest perhaps, if relationships had been built between the school and the family, particularly the classroom teacher, maybe personal invitations. And I don't mean they're going to, make 30 phone calls, every other night, but just, something in the car circle. And instead of just sending a peach jar flyer home, which can be useful, but not the only way to communicate with families, talking in the car circle, making a phone call or two to maybe a family that you think would be, especially interested or might especially get something out of attending that kind of event. So it's just important. Again, we talked about where there's a history of mistrust with families. It's important to, create that relationship, and then it produces, the point is that it produces an engaged family. The next condition we're going to chat about, Dr. Brim has mentioned link to learning, and we're going to really delve into this when we get into the planning portion, but this would be intentional activities that really help families learn about what their child is supposed to know this year, how are they doing against that learning goal, and what can they do at home to support those efforts. So having fun events, of course, it's important. It goes back to the building relationships and having a network built, but you don't miss the opportunity when you're having that fun activity to build their capacity. Tying your activities to grade level standards and really taking the opportunity to teach a family a strategy, give them a chance to practice it. We're going to get into that. And then, letting them be confident when they get home doing that strategy with their child. Asset-based. So this is really intentional activities that help build family capacity to support their child's learning. It's valuing what families bring to the table, valuing their knowledge and what they're already doing, and thinking about how you can enhance that. So think about how it would feel for you to ask a family, what's working at home when you read with your child at home at night? How's it going? What do you do? What's working for you? And listen to what they're saying. This would be in a literacy event, obviously, feed back to them some kind of strategy to do partner reading or suggest something new that would enhance what they're already doing. It's not we know all the answers and we're going to teach you, but what's working? Let me think about that. Let me ask you, might this help with you? Mm-hmm. So it's a reciprocal kind of thing. And it brings the families to life, basically, empowers them to be a real partner. All right, Dr. Brim?
Okay, so when you think about culturally responsive, we talk about different cultures, different ethnicities, family structures, languages. So how are we considering that when we examine our families? More recently, we started what we call Dad Engagement Initiative. Why was that important in our district? Because what we are finding out, there are more fathers now that are the primary parent in our students' families. And so males and females respond differently. So how do we adjust those to address our dads who are the leaders in their families, who are the only parent in their home? When we talk about, oftentimes we get culture confused with ethnicity. And I learned that just in my daughter going to FIU, and you just looking at someone who has a similar skin color, but when you ask them a question, they speak a language that you don't even know. So we oftentimes just do not assess our family structure. And I want to be able to say, I don't know if you're familiar with a software called Demography Now. And we'll talk about that a little later. That is a great tool to find out the dynamics of your families. And not only the dynamics, the income piece of your families, where they're located, who are renters, who are owners. So all of those pieces are often related to the cultural responsiveness, because we must know our families to make sure they're invited and welcome. The other piece is collaboration. You'll be surprised of families who just want a voice. We've started what we call focus groups, voices of parents, and each school can start a focus group that voices of parents. Why? Because you want that collaboration. We do not want to continue to plan for parents without parents being involved in the planning. And so we miss the mark so often because of the collaboration. We want to make sure we're fostering networking. The COVID, silver linings of COVID, increasing Zoom meetings, team meetings, it just expanded so much more for us to be connected to our families and to be more collaborative. It has reserved so much time for our families to even have a conversation, provide them training. So we want to make sure that we're collaborating with our families in so many different ways. And the last thing is interactive. They want to be involved. They want to be valued. They want to have a participatory role that's meaningful, not just busy work. Even in decision making, you could probably send parents out into the community to advocate on just recruitment of other families coming into your neighborhood. If you see a revolving door of selling and incoming families, to have a interactive conversations with the realtors, to be able to say, I understand you've sold 6 houses in our community. Could we find out the family dynamics? And if there are any students and families we need to reach out about our school. Those are some interactive ways that we really got to learn how to get at and practice new skills. So that whole interaction.
All right, we are absolutely right on time. And we thought perhaps you guys might need a 2 or 3, I don't know, up to 5 minutes break. We want to move along and respect your time and end as quickly as possible, but everybody needs a chance to stand up and stretch and maybe run to the restroom. So let's be back. Let's just say let's be back at 6:03. We'll back and gather then. All right, it's 6:03 on the dot. Let's pick back up. We're going to focus on even a little more on two of the process conditions. One is the relational, or we can talk about building relationships, and then more about link to learning when you actually think about developing a plan to bring back to your family engagement action team. I'd like to show a video from the Flamboyant Foundation. This is a mom in an elementary in Washington, DC. And she's talking about the relationship that she had with her daughter's teacher. So it's quite eye-opening.
Well, immediately after the home visit, I was then invited to a back to school night they were having in Stanton. They gave me the little flyer. I was like, well, you know, we're having a back to school night. It's from this time and this time. Bring the kids, you know, like a meet and greet the teachers and everyone that was going to be there. But one thing I can say about, you know, Stanton period is that it is constant communication, something I never had, something I completely enjoy. And it's not just negative communication, it's constant positive communication. I can be here at home, at work, anywhere, and one of my teachers would send me a text. Or I used to love it, Miss Lucas would send pictures. Take pictures of them doing classwork, and she said, you'll see, look how my Tanae, well, I call her Bird. The school calls her Bird, which I love because it's like a community. They adopted her nickname. So she would send me a text like, look at Bird, she's having a wonderful day today, and she's doing good. But in saying that, that allowed me to hear, it put a trust, I put a trust in Miss Lucas for doing that. So no matter what she said, how she had to say it, what the information is, it made it easier for me to receive it from her. Because she had built this communication, this trust that I never had. You know, so I tell people now friendship. You know what I'm saying? We're not friends to talk every single day, but she's a person that I will always hold in a high regard. She will always have my respect. I really respect Miss Lucas, and I value her so much because not just her, but all the teachers, but like she was the first one to really extend herself to me. And I would get the text, and then one day Tanae had a bad day, and she called me, and I was expecting to hear something good. Oh, you know, she got good on her test, so she did read, and she was like, well, we had a bit of an issue today. I'm like, for real? What happened? Well, you know, Tanae did X, Y, and Z. And I didn't get defensive. I didn't get, well, what do you do? Or what I actually sat back and I listened and I received the information. You know, and I processed the information. For me, that was something different because at that point in time, I felt it like, why am I getting mad? Because normally when you call me on the phone and you telling me something about my child did this, I'm naturally on the defense like, well, what did you do to make my child do this? Or who was messing with her in class because my baby's a good baby. But in this time it was different. And I don't know if it's because of the positive, you know, feedback she gives me every day, the friendship we brought. It just made, when she was telling me what was going on, I took a breath, I stopped and I listened. You know, and then I was like, we actually got to a page where we worked together. I said, well, you know what, since she's having a bad day, you know, can you put her on the phone? You know, and I spoke with her on the phone and I let her know that me and Miss Lucas are working together. We are a team, you know, and if she asks you to do something, you need to treat it as if mommy is asking you to do something. So if she asks you to sit down, you need to sit down. And there was no more problems with Tanae.
Oops, sorry, jumped ahead a little. I'd like to ask, you know, if anybody's comfortable unmuting, just, you know, reflecting on what you heard or what you thought about it. I think it's a powerful video. I think it was Ashley who mentioned about communication, you know, in the building relationships discussion we had previously. And this just speaks to that so well. Anybody have any thoughts?
I just think this goes back to John Gottman's research on that 5 and 1, where, you know, you have to have those 5 positive conversations. And so like in my own personal classroom, I used to call 5 families a day for the first 3 weeks of school to establish a positive relationship. And no matter how awful their child was, I never mentioned that. I always found something good. And I found that, if you do that and you connect with families positively multiple times before you ask for a negative, it's like that sales, you never ask for a no before you get 5 yeses. And so I think that applies to this here too, is that you get 5 yeses before you ask for 1 no. So, that's really helpful with families.
Perfect.
I want to take a chance to share something that this is a true story. Because we do parent advocacy, oftentimes I get calls for school leaders to ask me to kind of work with some of the parents, some of the difficult parents. This particular parent was a African-American father who had a young son who was having some difficulties at the school level. And so he did come to the district office and we had some very candid conversations. But as Lisa said, after about the 5th time, I felt very comfortable being very honest. One, I was an African-American female, he was an African-American male. And I was able to say, because he questioned me about putting the child on medication. And so after that relationship, I said to him, now you're asking me, and let's just put Dr. Brim on the side. I want to be very candid with you. You had your son in your later years. And I said, close to about 80, but I didn't say that. And so I said, and so now consequences of that is that he's acting out. Until you get a plan that's different, he will not be tearing up these principal schools. So you need to medicate him. Well, guess what? That could have been very strong if I had met with him the first time. But after we had that relationship, I was very honest with him. I said, these principals are tired. You medicate that kid till you can get it together. And guess what? He received that. He said, okay, Dr. Brim, I trust you. But it's the same as her trusting that teacher. Don't get angry. Let's deal with the truth. And so that is a true story. And he has been doing extremely better medicated. But that came through relationship.
Right.
Okay, I don't know if anyone else.
All right, we'll move along.
Okay, so this component is a huge piece of the dual capacity framework, because previously we have always, as I mentioned before, addressed engagement events as fun, event oriented. But if we believe now that family engagement is an instructional strategy, we have to be very mindful as we plan our family engagement events. What are the targeted components or deficiencies in our data? How should we look at our data to say there's a deficiency in our students in kindergarten with fluency? If we're going to do a trick or trunk, is it called trick and trunk from the elementary level? Because yes, but they use the trunk thing. Add something that can talk to kindergarten families about fluency. Give them strategies at home as they come by the cars and the kids get candy. I'm also putting in a couple of strategies we want you to work with the student at home on fluency. That was so easy. But guess what? They left with an opportunity to take home some actually strategies. The other thing, if it's more strategic, provide parents an opportunity to practice the strategy that you want them to work with their kids at home. And more so than not, it is important to have the dialogue, to have conversation. I'm having a rough time with this kid, your child mastering this level or this particular core standard. What do you suggest? And have that conversation with the family. And so I think this whole link to learning slide is going to be crucial as we begin to roll into the planning process. So here's where we're going to get into some of the key pieces of creating your plan. And we're going to talk about the roles and the responsibilities, because this is going to be very, very important. A lot of our principals did assign the community liaison to be the contact person. But also in that contact person, we was expecting them to help support delivering this training to their other team meetings. And we'll talk about that. But when we are addressing how do you go about creating your plan, one of the first things that's going to be very important, you must look at your school data. If you are not permitting your data to drive your engagement, you're just creating something on a whim.
Dr. Brim, can I interrupt for just 1 second?
Absolutely.
To which plan are we referring to? Because I think we've written about 30 plans so far this year. Are we talking about the family engagement plan?
Okay, so thank you, Lisa, for that. So to her point about a plan, about creating her SIP, their family engagement plan that's in SIP. If you did a Title I plan, all of these pieces are going to be interrelated. But what we want to make sure is that in your plan, in the execution of your plan, that these ideas are considered. You could write a plan, but in the execution of it, in the discussion school-wide, these are key pieces that we want you to consider as you begin to do what we call exploits. So you have to be able, just say you created a plan, but we're going to be doing these activities, we're going to be bringing these families in. Lisa, can you come back on and give me one key content in your plan that was written that you all plan to do, and for what grade level? And I'm going to use Lisa's plan as an example.
Okay.
As I wrote.
Which plan? Do you want the Title I plan, the SIP, the CNA, the family engagement? Which plan do you want?
Let's start with the SIP plan.
Okay.
Because that's the one reviewed by the area superintendents.
Okay. So which goal do you want me to share with you?
Think about your family engagement goal.
Okay. Give me 4 seconds and I'll pull it up.
Okay. So, and that is a valuable question that, okay, guys, as principals or as leaders, we developed a Title I plan, a SIP plan. Now we're talking about an engagement plan, but all of these things are interrelated. So this training is really working on taking what is written and executing it in a systematic format or a systematic way. So go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, so
tell me something.
Our goal for culture, number 5, culture and environment related to community involvement. Let's see here. The area of focus, description, and rationale is productive and respectful relationships with families and community and businesses and organizations are crucial in maximizing resources available to students. And then the measurable outcome is by spring of 2021, the number of registered volunteers and business partnerships will increase by 10%.
Okay, so I'm going to use this as an example as we go through creating a plan. So she talked about selecting, in that particular plan, I heard 2 process conditions. One was building relationships, right? So in the process condition is relationships. She wants to build relationships with parents, families, and community. So that's relationship as one piece. The outcome or the learning goal for that is increasing volunteerism and mentoring. So what data did you all use to drive that? Just question.
Well, the data would be our volunteer registration, like how many our volunteer hours and our volunteers from last year. And obviously the previous year, since there was no volunteering last year. So
Okay, so
that was part of the discussion.
Okay, so that's an excellent question, because we will be giving our principals more data on those pieces. But just, she is saying they looked at their mentors, their volunteers, and it was very low. And they included that in their plan. That is a driver. That's data driven. The story behind the data is that whatever that story is, that they feel that they have a lot of students, I'm just making this up, that has mental health wellness concerns. And so with that, they might feel it might support the students if they're connected to a mentor. So with that, then, even with the mentoring session, can families be a part of the solution? Absolutely, because we're including families in some of our mentor sessions. What action can families take to address the issue? How do you then, when you bring families together, you talk about, this is our goal. We really want you to come out and volunteer our school. We really want you to be a mentor. Where's the how? How do you connect? So those are the pieces when you think about creating your plan, not another plan, but taking something within your plan and flushing it out so it actually happens. And so how do you know it's going to happen? Ms. Kane, I'm not sure if I'm still my slide, right? Oh,
Yeah, am I advancing?
okay. Yes,
Are you-
no, you're next, the next slide. So how do you know it's going to happen? What type of planning tool or monitoring tool that you have?
So can I interrupt for a second? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's
Clarify. So I know we were going to share this slide. So we've moved into, the previous slide was talking about creating a plan, which can be the pieces of the plans you already are creating, the school improvement plan, the parent family engagement plan, if you're a Title I school. Really, we were talking about thinking about, creating a plan for an event, which is why we're moving into an event planning tool now, where the events would be planned with a content area, a learning goal, data driven. And instead of just saying, let's have literacy under the stars, or, reading under the stars night, well, actually, okay, but how can we select that specific learning goal? Where do we see the deficiencies, grade levels? Maybe we break out and do specific things all under the stars, all about reading, but it's driving, the actual action and interaction, the strategies that you're sharing. And so I'm sorry, Dr. Brim, but when we move into the family event planning tool, I just wanted to be able to connect that.
okay. And the other thing adding to that, it's going to be whatever activity you decide to plan, it's going to be also differentiated by level. Because if it's reading under the stars, it's going to look different from kindergarten than it is for third graders and fifth graders. And so that is why it's important that in your planning of your activity based on your school improvement plan, you have a planning tool. And so this is something we developed. I think you did get a copy in your email. So here, like for an example, we're going to talk about using Lisa's information. The learning goal you will address during this event. Okay, so if she is wanting to do a relationship building event, what is the actual learning goal, or what is the actual outcome of this event of building relationships throughout her school with her family?
So, well, for example, we're going to do a student-led conference night in November. So, so I don't know if you want to blow that out a little bit, but so the students are going to meet in their classrooms and they're going to lead conferences with their families. and, you know, we're going to have the kids teach their parents something, or the teacher teach something about independent reading or reading at home. And obviously that'll be chosen by the teachers as their grade level planning. Like what is it that the parents need to know before they leave, in order to be more supportive of their children at home.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That's a great example, because your learning goal is really linked to learning. That's okay. The process condition of that example is linked to learning. Having those parent conferences, just say a teacher drilled down to a deficiency of a student, and the student is explaining to their parent the overall results. Mom, when we had this reading test or writing test, I didn't fare very well because I didn't do a lot of details in my writing. Here is what my teacher is going to help me with to increase my ability to write more details in my article or in my, so those are the guiding questions that the student will really be teaching the mom. And then the parent might say, the teacher might say, an overarching piece of the classroom we observed was that there was not a lot of detailed information. And she might give an example how to really work that using the article. So that is, what will you do during this event? So you just described that. What will be the PD that will be provided for your staff so it's all systemic? So for an example, yes, it's going to be differentiated by grade level, but are there going to be common themes that your principal is looking for as an end goal?
The common theme is that all the students are going to need to be trained in order to present to their families. So the teachers need to be trained on how to train their students and how to host like portfolio meetings and that kind of thing.
Okay,
so
all right. So that would be a pre-meeting prior
exactly
to the event.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's going
right.
to happen with the pre-development.
Yes. And so then all of that front area is clear in your plan. And this is just the tool to execute your conference night. But in that, you want to talk about the process conditions, Ms. Kane. What would that look like if you filled out the process conditions?
Sure. And in terms of planning, it's just going back to, each of the conditions that we went over and saying, what are you going to do in that student-led conference night to address, all or most of those process conditions? And what will it look like? How will you know you did that? What are the things you're going to hear? What are you going to see? I get that of course, it's relational, it's linked to learning, but are you doing anything that's necessarily culturally responsive? Are you asking for parent input? Are you giving them an opportunity to practice what it is that you're going to be, teaching them in terms of a strategy and maybe a deficient area? Are you giving the parents an opportunity to interact with each other so that they're building those parent networks and sharing, parent to parent, not just, teacher or staff to parent? Just using the tool to plan, whatever event that you're thinking about. Is it, a classroom event or a school-wide event, but making sure that you've, let the data drive your interactions and selected those, content areas and learning goals and really planned out, to be successful, making your time and energy as productive as possible so that you have an effective and successful event. And not just successful, we've mentioned it, it's not a head count family engagement, right? We don't say, well, check, you had, 100 people or 200 people or 300 people, depending on what school you're at. And so that was successful. No, what's successful is going to be the evidence that you've addressed those 5 or 6 process conditions and that you've given those parents an opportunity to really take something home, feel confident, build some networks, have a relationship, with their teacher and have that opportunity. So something you can do in the relationship category, which we tried to do today, which I think also may hit the collaborative category, a simple icebreaker. Sometimes you just jump right in. You don't want to, necessarily waste time or spend too much time. It feels, froofy or whatever, but it's an opportunity for the teachers to get to know the families to get to know the teachers, and the families to get to know each other. So that's hitting 2 of the process conditions just with a simple icebreaker.
And so the other thing I want to add about the collaboration and the interactive, you might not have parents that will be available and could actually come to the actual building, or you might have set this up to all take place virtual. But in any case, if you do have families that cannot attend the night of the conference, teachers can say, okay, we want you to record at home, at your table, with your phone, your session on how you're going to share your data with your mom, just as we have taught you to do. And you're going to bring your recording and show and share that with me as a teacher. So that way, you're not only just eliminating ones, but you incorporating ones that really could not attend if it's face-to-face, still giving them that opportunity to do it at home, and they video it on their phone. Okay, next slide. Okay, so Ms. Kane. Oh, it's okay. So we're going to move into the process condition ideas. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Could you all, if you have your process condition, I'm sorry. It was a process condition document that looked like this that you got in your email. And in this process condition email, you have actually the process condition of elaborative, interactive, linked to learning. But what is nice about this, they're ideas for you to think about if you have not planned all your engagement activities as Lisa and her school has done thus far.
We haven't, I assure you. We're holding the school year with an open hand, saying, what's coming next?
So if you haven't, because you're still trying to, just work through all of this stuff that's taking place at your school site, this is a great opportunity to look at some of the ideas that are presented on that document of how you can really not recreate, but look at your existing plan and say, okay, if we want to do collaborative work on that piece, here's an idea that they have that's also tied to our school improvement plan, or also tied to my Title I plan. So this is just a document that you can actually use to give you some ideas. And so we're going to actually practice some of these pieces. Mrs. Kane going to talk about the breakout rooms for linked to learning, relational, and culturally responsive, and give us some information of what's going to happen in our breakout rooms.
Thanks, Dr. Brown. So using that ideas for addressing the 5 or 6 process conditions, we're going to break you up into 3 rooms. So there'll be about 5 or 6 of you in each room, actually 2 5s and a 4. And we want you to just come up with some ideas. You'll have an assignment. Room number 1 is linked to learning. Room number 2 is relational. Room number 3 is culturally responsive, and that'll be in the breakout room. So you won't have to be wondering, which room you're in. And we just want you to come up with some ideas for, an event and addressing those process conditions. What would you do in an event to make it, particularly linked to learning? What would you do to make it relational? What would you do to make it culturally responsive? And I think we're going to give you, let's say 8 minutes. It's 6:32. So we'll come back at 6:40. Or maybe Dr. Brim and I will bop into each room and see if you're done early or if you need a few more minutes. But I'll set the rooms for 8 minutes. And then you'll come back and one of you is going to please report out the ideas that you had to address that process condition in this sample event that you're planning.
So let me just chime in a few minutes to give you 3 examples that you know this is a Link to Learning event. One is a content was shared or a strategy was shared with the parent on a particular strand or standard. The parent actually had an opportunity to practice a strategy to take home. And then there are conversations in different manners, however you want, as to how we can build your capacity to support your child at home in this area that we're talking about. So those are the key things that you want to make sure is included in your activity for your Link to Learning. So, okay, Ms. King, I think we're ready for breakout room.
Okay. All right, you and I are not in a breakout room. Oh. Wow. Are you with me? I didn't mean to put you in a room. You're muted.
Oh, could you kick me? Could you put me back in the room with culturally responsive?
Oh, I didn't mean to put you in a room. Did you want to be in a room?
Well, I was in there and they was just asking me questions and I got kicked out.
All right, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Can you join it again?
How can I join it? You put me in that room.
I know, but now I can't move you back.
Um,
I didn't mean to put you in a room. I didn't mean you and I to go to a room. I'm sorry.
but how do we visit then the rooms?
Oh, I guess because I didn't make you let me make you
No, that's okay.
no, I think I can make you a host or a co-host. All right, now can you join? Can you bring up breakout rooms from your toolbar?
I'm looking down. Okay.
Go to the 3 dots if it's not displaying.
This will stop other sharing. Do you want to continue? I want to continue, yes. Oh, Lord. Wait a minute. Okay, go where down to my 2 breakout rooms. Okay, it was this room. So can I join?
Can't you just join it? Sorry.
Yes.
Welcome back. Still got a couple people coming back in. All right, so now I think we're going to ask one person from each room just to share out a minute or two of what you came up with, some ideas to address the process condition you were assigned. So let's start with the Link to Learning group. I know you guys had addressed your condition pretty early, and so let me know what you thought of.
We came up with the idea of what we called a look and learn event. In middle school, we just recently adopted new curriculum, and the program is Study Sync, which is on Kids Canvases page, where it's got even previewing content and marking and, annotating text and all that stuff. And we figured we could do a model and explain of curriculum to parents.
Lovely, excellent.
Mhm.
Let's go to the room that was addressing the relational process condition.
That must be us. We didn't see where what we had to do. This is.
Oh, it was kind of up on the top next to, it said Zoom meeting. I looked
Okay.
too, when I was jumping around, I wondered where it was too. And I found it up top. I'll have to point that out the next time we do this because it wasn't very obvious. Sorry, Marcia.
Okay, but we came up with something good that the group member's going to talk about.
Marcia. So we were a little bit confused with which one we were going to go with because we didn't really know. But our thinking was kind of, since Halloween's coming up, obviously we can't say Halloween, but ideally we were thinking, basically interact with and like I said, I don't know if we're under the right idea, but do something with candy and math relation and kind of have the the parents be involved in that and just kind of show them, hey, how we do math problems, just something sweet, simple, short, what they're working on in that classroom. And then the parents kind of can see that. They also get a chance to meet who we are and what we do and form that bond with them. So that's kind of, I don't know what that falls under, but that's what we came up with.
That was
That was a
cool.
good rally. That was a good
Yeah.
rally to the occasion there. That was real. It was good. We were building relationships. You were letting them get to know you. And in the meantime, you were also linking something to learning. So
Yeah,
that was
so
good.
that's what we did.
Good job.
So,
Good job. All right. Room number 3 had culturally it should say responsive, not responsible. Got to change that slide. Thanks.
So this is Brenna, and actually in our group, Ashley was the one that came up with the idea for something that they had done at another school she was at, and it was a celebration of diversity. So each sort of, I guess families could come in and volunteer and have different tables, like, like a Hispanic table or whatever their culture was, where they had like, music and dances and kind of things from their different culture, and families could kind of learn about the different cultures at the event. And then we talked about how you could then bring that information into classroom learning, across the different subject areas that students were in, and how that, related to what they were learning in the classroom, and about, their own, relating to their own cultures, and just talking about differences. And then the other piece that we kind of talked at the end was, how can we then take this information and relate it to the different family cultures within our school community, and how we communicate with them, especially the Hispanic community. So yeah, that was what we discussed.
I like that.
Oh, awesome.
Like taking the, the learnings from the event and putting them into practice as well. So that's great. Well, I hope you found that interesting, fun, a good, I don't know, time, 10 minutes or so, I guess, by the time we've jumped around rooms. But it's a way for you guys. I saw you all had turned your cameras on. So that was a way for you guys to, build relationships or get a little bit of networking done, collaborate. It gave you an opportunity to really, participate in something. So that was another modeling that, we're trying to do here. All right, Dr. Brim, you want to talk a little bit about the rubric, and then we're going to go into the roles. We have 11 minutes.
Yes. Okay. So I want to touch base in that same document. You have what you call process condition rubric. And so why are we giving you a lot of these tools? Because the accountability is very important. The accountability of finding out if we really met what we set out to do. And so in that rubric, it's going to help you gauge, okay, not yet, or we are almost there, or what they call, we nailed it. And so as we talk about nailed it, although attendance is an awesome way to say we nailed it, the other way to know if we nailed it is, did student outcomes in this area for this event increase? Did parents leave with a lot of information to support their child at home, as we talk about? Or are we seeing more parents wanting to volunteer? Am I getting overwhelmed with a lot of phone calls from my parents that I didn't have before? They're reaching out to me by email. So you will see some of the results to determine, okay, I still have some work. Well, I'm doing a lot better. But then at the end of the year or mid-year, you want to say, you know what? I feel like I nailed a lot of these issues that I wanted, not issues, but some of the things I wanted to accomplish. So take a look at that process condition rubric and just kind of use it. You can alter some of the things that you think should be a guide as to not yet, almost there, or no. So I think that's a great opportunity for you to evaluate your process.
Great, thank you. So we've talked about you being the point of contact for the family engagement action team at your school. And we wanted to kind of, give you some details or some expectations on what that meant. Maybe some clarification for those of you who were, voluntold. So we're using 3 areas: communicator, collaborator, and trainer. I'm going to go to the trainer first. So today you participated in a training. We did record it. We hope what will happen is that you will take that training, that learning, possibly the recording if you'd like, or pieces of it, back to your team and share with them anything new you've learned, the things we've gone over, all the handouts, planning tools, maybe take opportunities, you or anybody else on the family engagement action team, to give some quick tips during a staff meeting. Ask for 5 minutes every staff meeting to address family engagement and what's happening with the family engagement action team. What are some things that the classroom teachers can be thinking about? It's just an opportunity, which goes over to the communicator now, for us to be able to funnel information to your school and through your team and through you. And you back to us. What's working? What didn't work? What handout did we, give you that just was worthless? Or, what more do you need? That's what we're here for. We're here to support you as you become now our point of contact with your school. And then as a collaborator to really drive the family engagement action team to build a plan. Now I know we've talked about plans and lowercase p because there's so many of them, but build a plan, a family engagement plan. If you don't have a family engagement plan, which you might not really have one if you're not a Title I school, build your plan, plan your events with data in mind, use the tools we've given you, both in planning and in monitoring. The rubric, rubrics can be used just like the rubrics we give to students both ways. You want to know ahead of time how you're going to be judged. So you want to plan with that in mind. Then afterwards, you want to go back and say, okay, then how did we do? Just as Dr. Brim, went over. And then you even want to take it a step further and think about asking parents, a couple of weeks after an event, 2, 3, 4 weeks after an event, are you using what we taught you? How is it working? Again, back and forth communicator, taking the information that you've given them, enhancing it. Again, maybe learning more, yourself about what do parents want, what do parents need, what works. So I hope you get the idea of the point of contact role. We're giving you a little roadmap here in terms of what happens next. So I mentioned you should schedule a time to present what you've learned to your family engagement action team. Point number 2 is schedule a time for your family engagement action team to present at a staff meeting or the quick tips that I mentioned. Step number 3 would be the family engagement action team uses the process condition ideas and creating a plan tools to plan family events. I know it's early in the year, you might have had 1 or 2, but there's the rest of the years and the related events to plan with maybe now some new things in mind. Step number 4, review the event with the process conditions rubric. And then, as I mentioned, surveying the families post-event to see what they're using. Is it working? What more do they need? And then continually, reviewing and revising what data, what new data is coming in, what testing data is showing, after the first semester, what new content area and learning goals do we need to focus on? So it's a constant cycle of looking at data, reviewing, planning, evaluating again, moving forward.
If I can say something really quickly about the actual contact person or the lead, because I know a lot of principals have also selected the community liaison, and that might be very overwhelming. And then, of course, a lot of us are the reading recovery teachers. But I also want to just mention, for those of you who are interested even in leadership roles, or you finish your master's, you're looking to move over into administration, and some of the activities and things that you need to do is demonstrate leadership. This is an opportunity to really do something robust, to demonstrate not only leadership, but also leadership with the understanding this is how you move your school, this is how you move your students, and this is how you embrace your families. So I think that's just another way of just looking at some of these components. I'm sorry. Okay, so Ms. Kane, we're at questions and answers.
I know we've had some discussion back and forth. I don't know if anybody has any questions at this point.
I actually do. Yeah, I guess I'm the family community liaison at Sanderlin IB school. And so I didn't realize I was going to be on this team, but it's awesome. But I'm just wondering, within my school, who would I be looking for to join this action team?
So you should ask your principal, because they filled out a family engagement action team form, and they noted some noted up to 8 or 9 members of a family engagement action team. And we asked for, of those members, we asked for the one point of contact. So I could tell you what the form was, who was noted on the form from your principal, but you're going to want to circle back with them after this evening and share what you've learned and talk about, is the team going to meet and how will you present? And if, that's going to happen that way, or if they have some other, idea for how the team is going to, work together and come together. But there were names on the form. So there is a
Okay,
team on it.
wonderful. Yay.
Yeah,
Okay,
you don't have to
thank
worry
you.
about forming it
Yes.
yourself. But if you want, if you want to shoot me an email tomorrow and just, you want to know who's on the team, please do. And then you can, go and consult with your principal as well. So
I think, Ms. Kane, if we could, since the ones that are on tonight that have actually taken the training, if we could go ahead and send all of them their team members that was suggested by their principal.
okay.
And
all right.
that way you will know. The other piece, if you need some assistance with your team meetings, your team members of rolling this out, Ms. Kane and I are here to help and assist with some of you. And even some of you who are attending seem to be very involved at your school and very savvy. If you don't mind, if you want to be an additional resource for someone who's unclear, you could just let us know if you want to do that as well.
Would it be possible, Sheila, to send us this PowerPoint so we can snag these slides and
Oh,
read
yeah.
them? All right.
For sure. I'll send you the, all the slides in PowerPoint format, so you can just, pick and
Thank you.
choose or modify, as well as the recording. Sure.
That's
And
appreciated.
the
Thank you.
recording. Lisa, what school are you at? I need to make a note. No, I'm just kidding.
You should stop by for coffee, Dr. Brim. I'm at Tarpon Springs Elementary, but
Okay.
Art's Duet.
Oh my goodness. Tell Art I said hello.
Yes, he mentioned you just the other day. He's like, where'd Dr. Brim go? So I'll tell him I sat with you tonight in a meeting.
Okay, I sure will.
All right, we're right at 7. I'm going to not play this little video, but it's a really, really good video, and it gives you an idea of, I know we've talked about a lot of things, but what would effective family engagement, really look like, or it could look like. So I would encourage you, please, to click on it when I send it out, but we won't play it. It's a few minutes long, so I know everybody's ready to go on with their evening. Oops, not going to play it, I said. So thank you for attending. One thing I want to say real quick, we did create a PLN class. It's 3 hours. You'll note that we only spent 2 hours tonight because we're under the, expectation that you're going to take this back and spend some time working with your team and creating a plan. So that's executing what you've learned. And we added an additional hour. We're going to add all of you to the class because we wrote it too late to have you guys register for it prior to this evening. But you'll get the survey and you'll get 3 component points if you complete that survey. And again, if you're interested in following up with either of us, please do. This presentation, I just want to say, was a template from Slides Carnival. I happened to find it through Amy Brown, who's our Title I Parent Family Engagement Specialist, and it's got some really neat templates for presentations, both in PowerPoint and Google Slides. So feel free to check that out. And we're done, 7:01.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And have a wonderful night. Bye.